Spinner. Alright guys, we finally get into it. We get into this rear axle differential fluid change. And I'm going to show you guys how I did it real quick. I'm going to show you all the things that you're going to need to get the job done. You got some silicone adhesive for the gasket. I might use this stuff here too. Got the gasket. Got your 3/8 driver ratchet. Got a 1/2 inch socket for these bolts right here. Right. Got my penetrating fluid right here to loosen up these bolts. I'm gonna spray that on there so they don't, because they're probably seized on there. Make it easy. Spray this on there, let it soak. And last but not least, I got my 75 140 weight gear oil, synthetic. Right. All right, guys. First thing we're going to do. First thing you want to do when you get your gasket, right? You want to make sure that this is the right gasket. You don't want to put this thing on and you don't want to take all this stuff off and it's not the right gasket. So because then you'll have a truck that you can't drive until the gasket comes or until you go get it. So you just take the gasket that you ordered and you line it up, make sure everything fits. And of course these right here, these fasteners on the end of this wire is just to hold the wire in place, so you can just pull these off. They're on there. They're easy to just pull off, pull away. Right? You're gonna come up here and take your gasket, and you're gonna make sure everything lines up with each hole. And of course you can see that gasket fits perfect on there, so that is the right gasket. All right, take that and set it off to the side. All right, and the next thing you're gonna do, guys, you're gonna take your 3/8 ratchet and you're gonna come over here. Before you do anything, you're gonna come over here and you're going to find, let me just take this off here. You're gonna find your field plug. Be right there, guys. And you're simply going to take your ratchet and stick it in there. And you're gonna turn it counterclockwise or towards you, towards the rear of the vehicle. And you're going to screw it out. Now you're doing this first to ensure that this is not seized and that you can get to it. As you can see, it's starting to run a little bit. So I'm just, so that lets me know that it's full. And I'm just gonna screw that back in there and tighten it. Right, there's a little bit of oil on the finger there so you guys can see it. And I'm just going to screw that back in. I just want to make sure I could get to that plug, right? And then I'm going to come back and see how tough it's going to be to come off. Again, these are 1/2 inch bolts, 1/2 inch millimeter bolts. Let's see how seized they are on there. Yeah, they on there pretty good, so I'm gonna have to let this soak a bit. Which is no surprise, because it's been, you know, all the debris and the weather and everything, and they should be on that tight, right? So as we're gonna sit here and let this soak a bit, Let the penetrating fluid do its thing. And we're gonna come back. And we're gonna move on. Alright guys, now we're ready to go ahead and start removing the oil pan. I'm at the cover for the rear axle. I got my oil pan here. Alright guys, first thing you're gonna do, like I said, these are 1/2 millimeter bolts on here, except for these 3 right here. For those 3 right there, you're gonna need a half inch socket extender, right? Or a deep dish 1/2 inch, right? Because this has to go on over this screw. The bolts on here are different. They have screws on the end of them, right? So you're gonna need an extended 1/2 inch socket versus just the regular 1/2 inch. As you can see, that's extended versus, or a deep dish 1/2 inch socket, right? And first thing you're gonna do, you're gonna go around and you're gonna loosen them up, right? You don't want to start out with impact wrench, impact gun. You want to go through it with the ratchet first and loosen them up. Once you loosen them up, then you could go through here and take them off individually. Remember, we're going to leave the one at the top on. Okay. Make sure I keep all my bolts in the same spot. And now I can get to if it'll fit on there. Alright, that's 1. That's 2. Right? Leaving that 1 on there. Now right here is gonna be stuck on there from the adhesive and the glue, so you're gonna have to pry it off of there. Which I did. I don't know what type of sealant they use, but they use the good one. Because it's not even leaking yet. Let's see. Normally it would have been came off. The front wasn't. The front one wasn't this hard. Might try from the top. Oh, I could. Alright guys, stay tuned. Alright guys, as you can see, what I did was I used a heat gun and I used it to apply some heat around the perimeter of the cover to loosen up, to heat it up, to loosen up some of that plastic behind it. And guys, you don't want to start chiseling at this, because all you're going to do is destroy the seal, right? Because this thing needs to be smooth and solid. So what I did was I took my chisel here which is very thin, and I just stuck it in there like that, and I'm gonna work it around. Give it a chance here. I'm gonna use my heat gun, and be careful, guys, because you have your gas tank behind this, and you have other wires. But I'm using my heat gun. Just to soften up what's behind here, so it can eventually come off. Right. So I got my pan, got my chisel behind it. I could try to stick something else in there and force it out of there. Which, as you guys can see, it's in there pretty good. They use a lot of gasket sealing on this, obviously. And I'm just going to use my chisel and just take my hammer and just work it around there. Probably ruin them after this. There we go. Alright, guys, we're like in the home stretch. There we go. Oh yeah. There we go, guys. Got that flow. That's what we want. Right? Oh, it's messy, messy, messy. And we're just gonna let all of that come out of there. Remember, I told you I still got that bolt on here. I caught it. And we're just gonna take this bolt here. That the majority of it, since the majority of it is out, I'm gonna just unscrew it. And there we go. As you can see, this one didn't even have a gasket though. Well, they look like they use they didn't use a paper gasket. They created their own gasket with the rubber seal. Either way, works. Take that top bolt and just stick it back in there for now. And try to clean up a little bit. Now remember the field plug right here that came from back here. Here it is. It's gonna have some metal shavings on it. It's a magnet, so you're just gonna take and clean that up before you put that plug back in there. And that's good and starting to drain. We're gonna let it drain some more. What we're gonna do, guys, we're gonna clean all this up, so when we put it back on, it will seal nicely. Right, so I'm gonna get some brake cleaner and clean this up, and we're gonna start putting it back together. Alright, guys, here's the portion where you want to make sure you get all this old sealant this gasket sealant stuff, this glue. You want to clean all this off of your surface, so when you put the new gasket on, it'll seal like it's supposed to, and you won't have any problems. And you want to use a plastic spatula or chisel here, or you don't want to use something metal, because you don't want to scrape the surface and make it not smooth. And scrape away from it. You don't want this glue going inside of your axle there. And you're just gonna, that's too hard because it's just gonna scrape it, right? Just slightly do that to loosen it up, right? But don't press hard on it. That'll start getting it loose. And of course you're going to do that with this one, which is I've already done. And I just used some gas, some old gas, to pour in there to clean all that old gear oil out of there, and then finished it off with some brake fluid cleaner, right? And then you're going to come back with a soft brush and just go in and clean that up. And of course I'm going to use some brake fluid on here. Get all this cleaned up and tidied, so when I put it back together, it will adhere to the surface, and we won't have any problems. Then I'm going to clean this up and come right back. Stay tuned. Alright guys, we got it all cleaned up, and what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and start to make the gasket here. Not making the gasket, but actually applying the paper gasket to the differential cover. Alright. Alright, you got two sides to the gasket. You got this side, you got this side. Now, when you line the holes up, you make sure you want to line the holes up, because you want to make sure you got the right side, get the right side of the gasket with glue on it. So you want to line the holes up and make sure they line up perfect, because if you put it on the other way, the holes are not going to line up. That's how you know that the gasket is on backwards. So that tells me it goes on that way, right? So now I'm going to put the glue on both sides of the gasket, right? But I'm going to put it on this side first, because this side is going to be against the pan, and the other side is going to be against the back of the differential, right? So I'm going to put it on this side first. And again, I'm just using some regular silicone. And you're not going to really need that much like that, guys. Not much as you think. It dried up on me again. So now I got to poke it. Make sure it comes out of there. There it goes. Did it. Poke it again. You don't put the top back on this stuff, it will dry up on you. Well, this might be, look like I won't be using the clear silicone, so I have to use my backup. This right here. Okay. And it's the same thing. Right? So you're gonna put just enough on there, right in the center. You don't take much, because you're going to put it on both sides. You're going to apply it all the way down. Alright. Put a little more on there. Then you're going to take it. You're going to flip it over. You're going to apply it on there. And make sure it lines up perfectly. Right? Line all the holes up perfectly. And there you go. That is that. And to make sure they're centered, you just take your little plugs and stick them in there. And while you're at it, guys, you can, to speed up the process, you can just take your heat gun. I'll plug mine back up here. And you can just heat it up. And speed the process up a little bit. You want to make sure it sticks to it real good. And you don't want to have same way you did the other side. Just put just enough on there so it adheres to the back of the differential. Alright. Make sure you got enough on there. Right? So there's no leaks. Alright. Put my top back on here. And we can readjust the camera. Go back up here. Alright. At this point, we're going to be putting the cover back on very carefully. Make sure that it's going to go back on flush. Have your bolt ready. I believe it was right. I believe it was right here. I don't want to put the wrong bolt back in the wrong slot. I think this one, yeah. Possibly. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know if that one went back in there. I don't think so. Okay, I know where it was. It was right here. Make sure I can screw that back in there. Yeah, it was right here. Alright, so it's going to be that second hold. And you can put some thread lock on here, guys. It won't hurt. Which is probably what I end up doing. Just so I can make sure I don't end up having to come back and do this again. I'll see it moved on me. The gasket moved on me a little bit, so I just readjusted it. Right, and I'm just gonna put another bolt in there just to hold it at the bottom. And I'm gonna apply some thread locker to it. Right, and let's see what we got now. I'm missing that one bolt. Where did it go? Where did it go? Here it is. This right here. The fill plug. I'm gonna clean this fill plug off real quick. So I'm gonna try to make it quick. Clean all that gunk out of there. It has a magnet in there, guys, to draw in any metal deposits in there. That's pretty cool. Because stuff does get down in there some kind of way. Right? Take a wire brush and clean it out. Right? And just not to bore you guys, I'm gonna put some thread locker on here on each one of these bolts, and I'm gonna screw them back in there. Then I'm gonna go over here, back here where my fill plug is, and I'm going to add my gear oil. I'm gonna put gear oil in here, and I'm gonna take this and put this up to it, and I'm gonna stick this in that hole, and I'm gonna pump down on it. Pump down on it. It will pump it in there, and you're gonna keep pumping to where you can stick your finger in there. Once you can stick your finger in there, just the tip of your finger, and you have oil on it, that lets you know that this is full. If you look at my previous video when I did the front, that's the easiest way to do it. Right? And that's it, guys. That is how to change the rear axle differential fluid on an F-150 Ford Raptor. Like, share, subscribe. Stunner. Alright guys, this is the portion of the video where we're refilling the differential fluid using a common household container, which is like a pump, Germex pump. Alright, so you're just gonna put your differential fluid in here, and you're just gonna place that inside of that hole there. And I'm doing it one hand, but you're just gonna pump it in there. I'm kind of doing this with one hand, but I can do it like this. Never mind that run or that drip. That's where I didn't get it quite in there, but as you can see, it's just a very simple way to do it. Instead of going online buying that hand pump, you can just use what you got at the house. It does the same thing, and you're gonna keep pumping till this is all gone. And I believe, according to the manual, it takes 5.5 pints. But the way you can simply determine when it's full or not, let's just say it was full, right? What you're going to do is, you're going to clean this off, and you're just going to stick your finger in there. And then if you get oil on it, that lets you know that it's full all the way up here, right? But I'm gonna wipe this. The strap keep getting in the way. I'm gonna wipe this off, right? I'm gonna try to wipe my finger off as dry as I can get it, right? And you will stick your finger in there. And if you got if it was wet to where it was dripping off your finger, then that's full. As you can see, it's not dripping off my finger, so it's not full. So I got a few more pints to put in here. Stunner.